I'm homeschooling my young children and I just want to do it right. Are those words that you've uttered? But you're just not, what is right? What is the right way to homeschool? We put so much pressure on ourselves to do the best that we can, which absolutely we need to. But to put pressure on ourselves to do it right, it just causes so much fear. Are you still in the mindset that you have to school at home just the way that you were schooled in elementary school? Just think about that and bringing it into your house. That's definitely the way that I started homeschooling. But at the same time, I can guarantee that you want to create a stress-free environment where your children want to learn, where they thrive, where they want to explore and have the opportunity to explore and learn. You're going to enjoy today's topic. We're going to be talking about how to create a stress-free homeschooling environment. Doesn't that just sound great? My name is Diana Rolston, and I want to welcome you to Spark Homeschool Parent, where I provide and I give to you strategies that ignite that spark, that engages your child's learning. And if you've been following me for a short time now, you'll notice that SPARK is an acronym. We start with the S. Very important to use that time when you're first homeschooling to get to know your child, to learn their strengths. That S stands for strengths. And then P. P is purpose. To understand why you're homeschooling, the purpose, setting long-term goals so that you can bring that back, so that you know what you're doing day to day with that long-term vision in mind. The A is for attitude. We want to create fun learning environments for our children at home. And that's attitude. We don't want homeschooling just to be a thing that our children have to do, a place where they just like show up and like it's hard work for them. It is hard work, but we want to create a fun learning environment, and that is the A, the attitude. And then R is reflect. At some point, many times throughout your year, you want to just take a break and reflect where you've come from and celebrate all those wonderful things that you've done. Take a look at where you are now and maybe readjust before you move on. That's the R. And then welcome to February. We're talking about the K. Keep on going. Keep the faith. You can do it. And I'm really excited about today's conversation that kicks that off. This is for you if you appreciate hearing the experiences of veteran homeschoolers and learning from their experience. You're going to get that today. You're going to enjoy today's conversation if you're looking for alternatives to that school at home model that we're all so familiar with. And this is the right place for you if you are looking for tips on creating stress-free homeschool environment for your children at home. This is Spark Homeschool Parent, and I want to thank you for joining. As you are coming onto this Facebook Live, just send me a quick comment. Let me know who you are. I love to see people's names, so just send in a quick hi. That would be awesome. I'm Diana Rolston, and today's conversation is how to create a stress-free homeschooling environment. And I'm really excited about my conversation today and sharing that with you. I have the privilege of speaking with a mom of 10 who is married and has 10 children. She has been homeschooling for over 35 years. That's since the mid-1980s. So lots and lots of wisdom to share. My guest is passionate for the Word of God and her family, which shines through in everything that she does. She somehow finds the time to write and speak, and she was telling me how much writing she has sort of on the back burner, that when she has more time, she's just really excited to get writing again. Hey, Taria, nice to see you. Thanks for joining. And my guest today has literally written the book on stress-free homeschooling. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
Thanks very much for joining us.
Oh, it's a pleasure.
I'm just going to kick off by just sharing some stories about when I first started homeschooling. I think probably a lot of those that are listening, and maybe yourself, Robin, can relate. When I first started homeschooling my three boys, I set up our classroom at home. My boys were sitting at their desks. I have this great whiteboard on one of the walls, and I had my curriculum piled up high. I didn't know a lot of people that were homeschooling, but I did have one friend who had previously homeschooled. So she was answering some of my questions and she recommended some of her curriculum. And not knowing anything, I bought the language arts and the math and the science and whatever else was recommended. And at the start, it was going great. Just the way that I had imagined it. But then I started to stand back and reflect and realize we have options. We have flexibility where we're homeschooling. And my children started having opinions also. Maybe you could share your early homeschooling stories
Sure.
many years ago.
Sure. For some reason, I didn't do the set up my, whatever space as a school. I'm not sure if I just, had read the right book before.
Maybe.
And actually, what did make me or help me decide to homeschool, my husband had heard about it on the radio on it, I think, Focused on the Family. And he told me about it. And at first I was like, oh, why would we do that kind of thing? But as I heard more about it, I was intrigued. And a couple of my friends were just starting to do that. And I read one book. And in that book, it was just each chapter was a different scenario of a different type of family. And the title of the chapter would be just either the jobs of the parents or maybe education level. I remember like a plumber and a whatever, or like a lawyer and a whoever, or the single mom, or, high school graduate. And anyway, and each story was different. And what it showed me was that if you love your child and can read, then you can homeschool them successfully. And so I think that book maybe just helped me to understand that this wasn't a kind of classic schoolroom situation, but that would work into our lives, whatever that looked like. And also might have been that book, not sure, that made me understand I didn't have to do this for hours every day. Like you send your kids to school for hours every day, but you're one-on-one. So for one thing, if you're teaching them something, they either get it right away or they don't. You don't have to do busy work so that everybody, has time. They get it or they don't. If they don't, you can come at it a different way. With ones of my children, they had different learning readiness, academic readiness, just like some children get, their first teeth earlier. My kids got their first teeth later, lost them later. Kids learn to walk 10 months, 1 year, 18 months, whatever. It's different readiness, different development. And so what I learned with 10 kids is that they all had different readiness levels. So I remember one child, I would bring out the like initial little things I taught them, used to start teaching them letter sounds and whatever, and totally didn't get it. Like could not remember that was set or anything. And so we just put him away for, some weeks and brought him out, and just once he was ready. And then that's it. He learned. So I think I somehow had that concept, maybe not right off the bat totally, but fairly early on. I know with my second child, after my second child was in that beginning stage, I read something that talked about learning plateaus. So the child can, be learning, and then, like there's this plateau. And because this particular child was stubborn anyway, I thought, oh, she's just being stubborn. And later on, like a few years later, I'm like, oh, I think I killed the love of learning in her. What did I do? She's fine. She's great. Successful.
Yes.
Didn't,
Actually,
didn't
that's
damage her too
not.
badly. But I didn't know about that was a thing, a learning
Yeah.
process. And it is hard to discern if you have a stubborn child, right? Or a lazy child that doesn't want to. It's hard to make those discernments sometimes, but each child
Mhm.
is different and we can work with that.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about that a lot more. I love that you say that for you, you just know that if you love your children and you could read, then you can homeschool. That's actually, this is the book that you've written, Stress-Free Homeschooling.
Mhm.
And that is right in chapter 1, isn't it?
Mhm.
You've entitled that, Can I Actually Do This? Can I actually homeschool? Which is a question that so many people, well, they're questioned. Are you a teacher? Can you
Yeah.
homeschool?
Yeah. And
And they just,
that's what people ask me. And in my naive innocence, because I had read the book, they'd say, "Oh, are you a teacher?" And I would just say, "No, I love my child and I can read," which
Mhm.
is maybe, I could have said something a little more academic and intelligent and speak, as one of my friends called it. But yeah, I
Nice.
was so kind of blithely naive and, um, but justifiably so, because if you can read, you can learn along with your child. And, I remember my child asking, "But mommy, where does the food go after it's in your mouth?" And science is not my thing. So I said, "Well, let's look it up," and we looked child appropriate, age book about digestion. And I learned where the food goes when when it goes into your mouth. So, um, yeah. And then I tell the story also in my book. One of my friends was very interested in homeschooling, and she was a high school English teacher. So, she was no dummy. And she said, "Oh, I don't know if I can, because like I'm so terrible in math." And I said, "So and so, her name, you can teach your child that, one is one and two is two, and you can even teach them that 2 + 3 = 5. Like, enough to start with.
Mhm.
And when they get past you, and children these days in school learn all kinds of advanced math that I didn't, but when they get to that point, if they're so inclined, because I don't believe everyone has to do like all the maths that they ever invented, all categories of trigonometry and calculus. I don't believe that. Not if they're not going to use it. But when they get to that level, there's curriculum. You've taught them to read. They can read. They can get other help. Like, it's not all on you that you have to master all of everything,
Mhm.
So
That's so important for parents to realize. And then when our children have that interest, they are so
oh
excited
yeah.
and they have that purpose within them. That's actually, I think, part of your chapter 3. Why do
I
you
think
homeschool?
you know my book better than I do.
Well, when I forget when it came out, a few years ago, but
Yeah, I haven't read it since.
I have the benefit of having it in front of me right now, and knowing I was going to talk to you, so having to take a look at it more recently. Um, yeah, the purpose. Why are you homeschooling? So for me, when I originally started homeschooling, my purpose was to school at home, which, as many of us know who have homeschooled for a few years, that is not an appropriate purpose for homeschooling. But you say to just like really think about your priorities.
Mhm.
I
Yeah,
know
well,
that's
yeah.
something that's important to you. Um, and setting those as like what you're striving towards.
Yeah, it is so good to know your goals. And our goal, and everyone has different goals, but our goal was that the primary thing we wanted to pass on to our children was love God and love others. And we thought we could do that better than school, certainly public school, and even better than private school. And so then obviously the curriculum choices we make, and maybe where we're going to spend more time or less time, it's going to inform everything. Another family will have, like, their goals will be, something else that they want for their child. Maybe to spend, I've met some and heard some who just want their child to be sort of in nature all the time, so their situation is going to look like that. So, the ways to homeschool are as diverse as the families to homeschool. Your goals, your situation, what you're doing, what your husband's doing, or, just personality, gifting, interest. Like we're all different. And that's the beauty of it. Your child is not just this little automaton in this system that has different goals for your child than you do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's lovely, and it's lovely to be able to look at your children as they grow and just see where their gifts are, where their interests are, and be able to let that flourish.
Yeah. And that, I think, is one of the really big fears of of families that are home educating their children, is like to do it right. But like you say, there is no right. There's no one way of homeschooling.
No, but I have thought about it, and it's probably everything I say is in my book. This is the culmination of years. So um, I have thought about it, and I have wondered, sort of, or boiled it down to some essential ingredients, like the non-negotiables to me, okay, how I see this. And that came out of, I did have 10 kids. I never homeschooled all 10 at once. By the time the youngest was born, the oldest was 22, and, several of them had finished schooling, but several weren't in, school, being formally educated yet. So maybe, I don't know if the most I did at one time was 5, maybe, possibly 6. I'm not sure.
Okay.
But still, I was homeschooling children, teaching some, to read. And in those first years, years when they're older, it's like, here's your books, go do it kind of thing. But you're interacting with them, the babies, the toddlers, you just, all of that. So I was busy. All this to say, I was busy.
That's
And I
so.
looked at some people and what they did. They had 2 children and they did all these like amazing, amazing things. And I say that I gave my kids a bare bone education as far as formally. And I want to say that because they had a rich education from life. We had, I love hospitality. We had people around our table. That was so educational. Just them listening to different people talk from different viewpoints and from different countries, and so educational. And there's so much learning that is done. I have a whole chapter, life learning, that is done through life. But like formal education, I taught them the basics. And read, write, arithmetic. And in our situation, as we're Christians, loving God, Bible. And my children who did pursue higher academics did exceedingly well, got scholarships. And I kind of thought, how did that happen, since I feel like I only gave them a bare bones education? And as I contemplated it and analyzed it, it's because we taught them to read so that they could learn, and to think. And a university professor that my son talked to when he was doing an essay and research and whatnot, he said the kids coming through the system, and again, there's exceptions, we're not saying all, but what my son told me that he told me, the kids coming through the system could decode, they could read the words, whatever, but they couldn't interact with them. And what he was saying was homeschooling kids were able to think. So if you can read and you can think, you can learn anything. And I honestly believe that made a huge difference. And that's, like, I would encourage people. And again, you don't have to panic. Oh, my child's 6 and he's not reading. In the readiness, I'm not an unschooler. So I did, tell my children, this is, here we are learning this. As far as, for sure, as far as the basics go, and even beyond. They still have loads of time to pursue all their interests. But that, again, people do it a different way. It's all, you can all succeed very well. But, teaching them to read, teaching them to think is I believe, a formula for success.
Mm-hmm. And you touched on a very important point there also, is comparing ourselves to other moms.
Oh.
What we perceive they're doing could be very, very detrimental to our mental health. comparing our children to other children, comparing our children even to
Each other.
each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, just creating realistic expectations for ourselves
Yeah.
and for our children, for our family. So important.
Yeah. And I have, there's a friend who came into my life after I'd been homeschooling. I had some in high school. And honestly, if I met her when I was just starting out, I would have been totally intimidated and
Mhm.
just, yeah, felt like I wasn't good enough and didn't measure up. She was amazing. She had the time, energy, inclination, and finances to do all these wondrous things, like just the things they built, the hands-on stuff they did. I read books to my kids, but then I loved reading books to my kids. And now
Mhm.
we have a culture in our home where we just all love the same, classic children's books, and some beyond that we read together. And, we have a whole culture where people will say a line like in context of life, like they'll quote from this book and that book. And we all know who said that and what book. And it's just so fun. But that was us. And
Yeah.
that's because that was me with the books. Yeah, but I would have been totally intimidated by my friend. And I did that in my earlier days. I remember having a friend whose kids were in school and their child was in grade 3 and my oldest was in grade 3 and she had spelling words. I'm like, oh, we don't have spelling words. Like, give me your child's list every week. And for a few weeks, I tried to copy
Yeah.
this spelling thing and it wasn't going well. And I thought, wait, what am I doing? Why? And I've
Mhm.
done that with other things too, earlier on when I was doing a certain job. Actually, a friend of mine said they were going to start homeschooling. They moved to another city, to our city, and they said, oh, just order my child everything you're ordering for your child. They're the same age as my oldest. And so we are doing this geography curriculum and they were doing it, but this woman made tests for her child. When I was over and I saw the test, I thought, oh, good idea. Like, let's do the test. And I copied her test we started that and I went, wait, that's my goal for my child is not that she has everything memorized here, but that she hears it, is familiar with it, so that when she meets it again, there'll be some hooks. She'll maybe have more interest a little bit, and anyway, I just had to stop with the imitating everything. And I mean,
Mhm.
someone might be doing something that is a great idea for you and a good fit. Sure. But
Yeah.
not like if it's a good fit, if it is something that will work for you, but not to feel bad that you're not doing all this other thing. Just know who you are and who your children are. And that comes sometimes slowly. At
Yeah.
least for me, I'm a bit slow.
Me too.
I'm so busy just trying to survive, juggle, and
Yeah.
yeah, so
Uh-huh. Thanks for that. Um, so I could feel the stress even now with you just thinking about those situations. And here we are talking about stress-free homeschooling.
yeah.
So
We
absolutely.
we have to sort of discipline ourselves. Not when we see ourselves going there, it's like not to go there.
Yeah.
Because yeah, that causes stress. Just don't go there.
Hmm.
What are you doing, that you've given some thought to, decided this is what you're going to do, and just stay the course. At the same time, you choose to do something and then it's just not working. Check it. That's okay. Like sometimes it takes us a while. Um, in my household, French curriculum is an interesting word, an interesting concept, because I have tried so many, I mean, countless French curriculum, because I had in my mind, I was trying to find that thing that my kids could do because I was so busy. I wanted something they can do on their own. And I tried one after the other, like over the years, until I finally realized with my, I don't know, seventh offspring, that what they needed was me there actually
Mm.
for and again, someone else's child, they might be fine. Go do Rosetta Stone over there. That works for them. For mine, it was no. They wanted me being there to walk them through it, to help them through it. And that when I discovered that with that offspring, he's the one who knows the most French.
Ah, yeah. And then going back to realizing the uniqueness of each child.
Yeah.
And
Because I tried that same curriculum with other children following, and it didn't work. It was very dry and textbookish. So this year with my last 10th child, offspring, who is graduating in a few months, I found a French curriculum that works for him, and it's a different one. Anyway.
Beautiful. Nice. So, creating this stress-free environment when we're home educating, we have cleaning to do. I mean, we're living, we're educating in our home. There's laundry, and in your family, lots of laundry. There's groceries for our family. We look in the backyard, and there's yard work to do. How do you get all of that done in a stress-free manner? What are some of your
Well,
suggestions?
I think for one thing, different people have different tolerances. And while I don't want to be living in a disaster, big mess, big sty, I also don't need perfection. And I know some people sort of do. So one of the thing is to understand that like you do have to be realistic, and you are living in this home with these mess makers.
Mhm.
So it's like, are we going to focus on perfection in the that housework, or are we going to focus on our children, their education relating to them, while not neglecting and abandoning that? And one thing we did is we involved them as soon as they were able to, and maybe it was some before,
Mhm.
but they can do so many things at a younger age than I think society kind of gives them credit for. And they feel then like if you get them young enough when they want to do it before they're really able to do it well, like
Mhm.
they're not, they just want to. But if you get them doing that and it's part of your routine, even if it's a little bit harder on you, then it's just a natural thing. So um, we had, daily chores, we had weekly chores, and they all were part of it. And frankly, I find it harder to entertain, to show hospitality, to have people over for a meal now that it's basically just me. I mean, we have two offspring still living at home, 20 and 18, and the 20-year-old's either out working or out, and depending on the season, the 18-year-old. And so before they would all be helping, cleaning, tidying, bake, helping. And so when people have like 10 kids, they're maybe thinking of their situation, and maybe they only have one or two, and maybe they do all the work or almost all the work. So you just, one of the things is to train up, train up your children, involve them. Might be a little labor intensive at first, but it's so pays off before you know it.
And making that routine, like we in our family, and what we've always done, also, which I think is what you've done. You eat the meal, and then everybody cleans up. Or,
Mhm.
I
Yep.
mean, in our case with five, everybody can. You don't want 12 people in your kitchen cleaning up, but that's part of the
No, we had
routine.
charts, we had chore charts, and they actually worked. I say
Hmm.
that because I also made schedules, school schedules, and they didn't work.
Yeah.
Part of that might be my personality. I'm very flexible. And part of that is life. So you make a schedule. And when they're little, I don't suggest time schedules like 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. I suggest what, like, first we're having breakfast and then we're doing this and that. So it's not time.
Yeah.
Um, but I would make these schedules because I had that many kids, and I had to figure out, well, this one needs me for this schooling and this one can be independent when I really did have to make these schedules. And for the first few I made worked beautifully for 2 days. Um, I remember getting 3 weeks out of a schedule. I was pretty proud of that. But what happens is you're doing, people, it's flowing, whatever, you're working with this one and that one, and there's an attitude issue, like a real serious attitude issue. And so some fit because some children, when they don't understand what they're doing or they feel like they've got it wrong or whatever, they might be very emotional about it, very dramatic.
Yeah.
And so I would stop and deal with it. Well, now we don't have time for the next thing. Or also, if they were not finished, like if they weren't finished something, I'm not going to go, oh, time to stop. Now we have to go to the next thing. I would be like, finish it up. If you're in the flow of something,
Mhm.
Sometimes it's simply my kids were playing together beautifully. And I'm like, I'm not going to break that up to call that one to do their whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's
Just
a
like
good
let it
thing
go.
too.
That's my personality. Okay. So I'm just saying that's me.
Yeah.
And so those kind of schedules um, work loosely. Like they say, if you aim at nothing, you hit nothing kind of thing. So are like, okay, but I didn't sweat it. I guess that's it. I didn't sweat it and I didn't stress when we didn't get it done. You know, I talk about in the book how I have this little, it's called Robin's rule, not a law that I made or a rule that I made, but like the law of gravity, like it just something that is. And I call it Robin's rule because it's alliteration and it sounds good. But
Yeah.
anyway, and what I say is the first two things you plan get done. The rest, maybe.
Mhm.
So for a certain segment of our, in our life, the kids were doing math and piano were like the first two things that we were doing and focusing on. And we weren't getting language arts. We just weren't getting into it. So, oops, I just switched out and I made that as one of the first two things. And
Mhm.
it's not like we never got to the other things, but you can just be flexible like that.
And setting your priorities, that is what
Yeah.
you
And it just
do.
adjusting, just tweaking.
Mhm.
And and I think it's just so important to know your kids are going to be okay. That's what we're stressing about. When we stress, it's because like, will they be okay? Will they, be successful adults or integrate into society successfully? And I say, unless you live in a cave where, maybe then they'll have to learn how to, react with other people. But like,
Mhm.
I'm taking that maybe they have relatives or friends or, Sunday school, whatever, like activities. They're with people. Well, your people, your
Yeah.
family's people, and they're with other people. And all I say is they'll be okay. Like if you're homeschooling because you care about them, you're not homeschooling because you don't. If you care about your child, and again, you give them tools like reading and thinking, um, then I think that they will be successful, however
Which
you
brings
judge it.
us right back to where we started, which is beautiful. Love your children. That's what it boils down to, eh? Love your children and be able to read, just like you said. I think.
Enjoy them as much as possible. And you know what? Sometimes they're not enjoyable because they can go through stages. And I've had my stubborn ones. They weren't. This particular I'm thinking one was sort of like the girl with the curl. When she was good, she was very, very good. When she was bad, she was. Yeah,
We all have one of those.
you know what I mean. It's not like she was.
Yeah.
She was lovely and creative and stubborn as all get out. And uh, when she was quite young, someone was sharing with someone. They said, "Well, just pray that she'll be stubborn for God."
Mm.
And I did. And she thanked me in her adult life. Like she thanked me for all the discipline, that I didn't give in to her, and all those things that you just feel like a terrible mom because you're
Yeah.
insisting on the right thing that you need to insist on. And she thanked me, for that. That's
Beautiful.
very rewarding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good introduction to my live next week when I talk to Lisa Moore Eid, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling our children through the middle school ages, where we do see a lot of that behavior of, I was going to say fighting back, not fighting back, but being stubborn, showing their opinions. So come back for that.
Well, yeah,
I
people
also,
people do start that at different ages.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah. I also have a comment here of some families that know you and are grateful for the Gilman girls who taught my girls ballet. I'm sure there's a lot of families that can say that. And she would like to know where that daughter is, what she's up to. Or maybe you have a
Mhm.
few
That would be telling.
daughters.
Sometimes when I speak, I ask permission. If like
Oh,
sometimes she
yes.
doesn't care if I use her name, and sometimes she doesn't. But I haven't asked permission. But
Okay.
she's someone who loves God and is very. She's a lovely human being.
And she's still dancing, no
Yeah,
doubt.
yeah. Um, can
Yeah.
I just share about this book?
Oh, absolutely.
So this is a book that is called Daniel's Dilemma. And I wrote it 29 years ago when my son Daniel was 4 and he was bored. He wanted to play with his older siblings. They were all doing their schoolwork and he didn't want to play with the little one. And he just said, I'm so bored. And I'm not quite sure how I solved it, that inspired me to write a book. And in this book, the little Daniel's mom suggests that he becomes a secret servant, that he goes around the house and sees what he could do for people secretly. And she gives him these little index cards that says like tidied by your secret servant. And he's kind of skeptical at the beginning, but he tries it and he has a lot of fun. And in the end, the older siblings are so thrilled and they go on doing that as well. And every time I've read it to my kids over the years, we'd have a rash of like, they'd go around being secret servants, which was always very pleasant. I don't guarantee that result, but that's what, my result was. And then a while back, I decided I wanted to actually publish it. And a young lady who I knew was a good artist agreed to do the pictures. They're beautiful illustrations she did. And she ended up marrying my son, which was when I got to know her what I wanted, because she was just such an amazing young woman. So I just got over 100 copies of this. So while it is available on Amazon.ca, just as this is, if you live in the Ottawa area, I would just love you to buy it off me.
Yeah.
So,
and then where can people get a hold of you?
Well, I could.
Or I think Stress-Free Homeschooling
Well, I have 2 websites. So I have stressfreehomeschooling.com. I have a blog specifically for homeschoolers, which is stressfreehomeschooling.com. That is specifically for homeschoolers. And yeah, but you can find this on Amazon.ca. You can get a hold of me through my blogs, or, if you're watching this, presumably you're on Facebook, you can find me there.
Excellent.
And yeah, I'd love to meet with you, encourage you, and I'd love to sell you my book.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Robin,
Well,
for joining us.
Thanks, Diana. It's been great.
Yeah. And this is Spark Homeschool Parent. And my commitment is to equip you with the skills and the mindset to navigate this ever-changing homeschool journey. If you're looking for a community of encouragement, join us if you haven't already at Spark Homeschool Parent Facebook group. And like I said, I'm going to be here again next Friday, 1 o'clock with Lisa Moore-Eid, and we're going to be talking about homeschooling our children through those middle school ages. And I have an upcoming webinar week on Saturday, February 12th, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And that's going to be on how to educate joyful children with a spark for learning. So hopefully you can join me for that. I'm going to put the links in our comments here, and I'll put in Robin's website also, so that people can connect with you. Thank you again, Robin.
My pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.